Welcome back to Torsos of Desire, written by me, Nicole Beckley. This is episode 4, where I'll be reading pages 67 through 86. A quick recap of what happened previously. The narrator went on another date with Paul, who used to be a pro baseball player, and she went out with Diego. How can she say no to these studs? She can't. In fact, she and Paul kind of had an epic night together. But she had to rush off when she found out her apartment building is being condemned. Ain't that New York City for ya? She had no choice but to move in with her best frenemy, Karen. Should she quit messing around with Diego and focus on Paul? Why is Paul keeping secrets from her? We don't know yet, but she has to go back to work, which is where we've left off. Deja vu. Have you ever experienced deja vu? Have you ever experienced deja vu? It's like if you have a memory of something you'd remembered before. Like if you go to the store for eggs and then get home and remember you forgot to get eggs and you've had the memory of forgetting them before. Maybe because you also forgot them last time and now you can't make that omelet. It's one of the most powerful feelings a human being can experience. It's exactly how I felt when I saw Andrei Soplowith sitting in the Ludlow Media Building foyer. It was like I'd seen him sitting there before. And not just because I'd seen him sitting there yesterday. Andrei was one of the hottest young adult book writers around. And by hottest, I mean popular. He was actually pretty schlubby looking, with a bald head and a burly build and tiny little reading glasses on his nose. He looked innocent enough, but he had a reputation for being nice and approachable. He liked to write all these tearjerker books about teens who were sad and cried a lot. His most popular series was the Teacup Teen Club, about teens who get together to drink tea and cry and collect rare teacups. Next to him was a big plate of powdered donuts, and next to the powdered donuts was Ryan Goldberg, one of the other hottest young adult writers around. He was probably 12, maybe 13 years old. I wondered what they were doing here. And just as I wondered that, Sophie caught up to me and asked if I read the synopses she'd put together. I hadn't. She mumbled something about how nobody was taking her seriously, but I just started laughing because she had some powdered sugar on her face. Oh, Sophie, you gotta stop that donut habit. Sophie said there'd been a bit of a scheduling snafu with Soplowith and Goldberg, and they weren't supposed to come in on the same day because their books would be in competition with one another. Well, whose fault is that, Sophie? All the designers were assembled in the conference room. There was Big Jim, the gregarious one, Little Jim, the slightly less gregarious one, Sad Randy, the funny one, Mabel, who didn't have any discernible personality features, Cut Up Kathy, who always did kind of lewd drawings, and Flexi Lexi, who was surly and no one liked but was a gifted genius. Carrie called the meeting to order, and all the designers got out their laptops and tablets and drawing papers, and Ryan Goldberg came in to talk about his book project. It was called The Lady with the Big Tits, and it was about a lady with big tits who takes them on adventures. And it was about the Holocaust, because World War II stuff is always popular. The designers said they could work with the big tits, but they weren't so sure about the whole war thing. Was there a love interest? There was. It was a traffic cop called Buddy Ferrari who had a bad gambling habit. The designers said they definitely liked the gambling thing, and maybe they could do something where the lady's nipples looked like dice. Kathy really liked that idea. Or if they went with the war thing, maybe they could make the lady's breasts look like cannons. This is why they get paid the big bucks. We took a break, and then Andrei Soplowith came in to tell us about his book. It was called A Womanly Bosom, and it was about a woman with large bosoms who takes them on adventures. And it was about the invasion of Normandy. Really, though, is anything worse than when a perfectly good beach gets used for war? The designers said they loved the book's originality, but they didn't really have any ideas. The room was quiet for 2 minutes. Maybe we could do a wet t-shirt motif, Kathy finally said. Or make the parachutes look like bosoms, Lexi said. Sad Randy giggled, which seemed very inappropriate since we're in a business meeting. He must have remembered a funny joke or something. Deja Vu, Part 2. I felt pretty inspired by all the ideas the designers were generating. How did they think of these things? And why? I always thought it would be cool to have a book jacket that had a pocket on the front with a handkerchief inside, like a real proper book jacket. Don't know what the book would be about, though. Handkerchiefs? I was just about to walk by Bryant Park when I saw a familiar figure. He was tallish, with a swirl of blonde hair and an unmistakable way of walking. He'd put one foot right in front of the other, left, right, like walking was no big deal. He was smartly dressed in a navy checkered shirt, and when he turned around, I got a good look at his butt. That's all I needed to know for sure. It was Jonathan. I thought I'd forgotten all about him, but it turned out I still remembered a few things. I jumped into some low bushes, but that actually created quite a bit of noise, and Jonathan saw me and whistled loudly like, "Get over here!" That was how he most liked to communicate, by whistling. He looked different than when I last saw him. I wondered if he was tanning again. You can always tell when somebody's addicted, mostly because there's a burnt orangeness to them. Still, he'd always been handsome, in a pompous, pretty boy sort of way. He walked over and I pretended not to notice, like I was very busy inspecting the leaves. "Hey, what are you doing in Bryant Park?" Jonathan asked. "I'm very into nature now," I said. "I can see that," he said. Man, I'd forgotten how observant he could be. "Enough about me, though. How are you?" I said. It's important after a breakup to be seen as caring so that your ex can remember how kind and loving you were and start to feel bad about not having such a kind, caring person in their life anymore. Jonathan said he was doing great and that he just got a promotion at work and had an amazing new apartment in Tribeca and was flying to Tahiti this weekend for a little vacay. But I could tell that inside he was probably just missing me like crazy and thinking that he'd made a big mistake. "Oh, it's okay," I said. "Things will get better." So caring, right? Jonathan kept insisting that things were good, and I continued to pretend to listen and say, "Just keep trying." He was really going to regret ever leaving me. All my kindness must have been really getting to him because he said, "You're really impossible, you know that?" And that he had to go, probably home to cry himself to sleep. I gave him a long, expressive hug so that he could think about it later and feel lonely. I needed to get out of the itchy bushes, but I stayed a little longer to watch Jonathan walk away. It was just such a nice butt. When he got to the edge of the park, it looked like he was bending over to kiss some brunette woman, and then it looked like they were walking hand in hand and getting into a black Audi. But I knew he was still thinking about me. Metaphors. Running into an ex will always make you think about the past and the future. And maybe the present if you're in the shower or doing something with a circular saw. But you know what they say, the past is like a ghost town. It might have been cool a long time ago, but now it's dusty and full of tumbleweeds. Or sometimes they say that the past is like a party bus at the end of the night. The party's over and the bus is going nowhere. Or that the past is like drinking a whole gallon of chocolate milk. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but tomorrow you'll feel super bloated. Wait a minute, these weren't metaphors at all. They were similes. I always get those mixed up. Karen and I had planned to have a girls' night out because she was feeling kind of down in the dumps. Karen said Richard had finally gotten the message and stopped calling, but now she was feeling a little lonely. Oh yeah, Richard. I'd forgotten about that whole thing. Karen said she wanted to go and have a nice quiet dinner and talk, but I knew what she really needed was a chance to let loose. I took her to one of my favorite spots, the Cheetah Lounge. The vibe there is industrial chic meets deserted Saharan wilderness. It's in an old warehouse and the floor is dirt. What I like about it is that it's super exclusive and the drinks are dirt cheap. They import all their wine from Botswana. At least, it tastes like wine. I told Karen that I'd run into Jonathan and it was clear that he really missed me. That just made Karen seem more depressed. But I knew she'd feel better once we got out on the dance floor. There was a DJ playing tribal house music and a live bongo player who kept giving Karen come hither looks. I noticed and made sure that Karen was dancing right next to him. He seemed to grow a little more distracted because his rhythm was all over the place. It's pretty hard to dance to uneven bongo playing. Before I knew it, though, Karen and the bongo player were all over each other. Karen claims she accidentally tripped and toppled on top of him, but that doesn't usually lead to making out, unless you've already had 4 glasses of Botswana. I watched Karen and the bongo player fumble around for a little while longer, and then I called Paul. He said he was jet-lagged from Alaska, but we could meet up tomorrow. So I told the bartender, 1 more glass of Botswana, and they said, "It's boxed wine." The present. I hadn't seen Paul in nearly a week, and I was worried that he might have forgotten what I looked like, so I got my hair highlighted and my eyebrows groomed and a long acrylic nail manicure. I really wanted to look like myself. Plus, the most comfortable place to sleep off a hangover is in the salon chair. Karen and the bongo player, whose name was Bernard, were still asleep when I left. Man, they'd really gone at it. I didn't know Karen could make so much noise. At 3 a.m., the opera singer neighbor had to come over and tell them to quiet down. That's the problem with bongo players. For them, every activity is an opportunity for percussion. Paul said he wanted to walk along the High Line and then get a drink at the Whitney, and that sounded nice and romantic to me. I had to hear more about this Alaska business. What sort of freelance job sends you that far north? I put on a denim tube top and white denim pants and my best walking heels and met Paul near the north entrance. He was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans and had just enough of a 5 o'clock shadow to give him this rugged outdoorsman look. God, it was sexy. "You look nice," he said. I told him I was thinking the same thing. I did look nice. But also him. He looked nice too. Seeing him again after so long brought back a lot of feelings, mostly of lust. "I've been thinking about you a lot, and I got you something while I was away," Paul said. "A present?" I said. I couldn't remember the last time a guy had brought me a present. I guess my ex Gregorio did get me a parrot, but it flew away. Apparently nobody told parrots that just because a window is open doesn't mean they have to fly out of it. How are you ever supposed to get a decent cross breeze? Paul pulled out a little brown paper bag from his pocket. It looked like it contained a carton of cigarettes. I should have been more specific about telling him how much I hate smokers, but a gift was a gift, so I'd have to pretend to like it. I opened the bag. Inside were 2 carved jade earrings. "I bought them from an ancient artisan," Paul said. I took off my dangly gold hoops and put them on. They fit perfectly. She said they'd had a special spell put on them. Right then I slipped on a stray banana peel and tumbled toward the edge of the High Line, clutching onto my tube top for dear life. Who had been eating bananas right there? I rolled into a large aluminum trash can and ricocheted back into the middle of the walking path, winding up spread eagle in front of a group of Japanese tourists. They took photos. Or maybe it was a curse. I can't remember, Paul said. A curse? Who buys someone a gift that's been cursed? Unless it's the Hope Diamond, and even then. I was sprawled on the ground, so Paul laid down next to me and squeezed my hand. We both admired the view for a minute. It really is a nice city. "You okay?" he said. I nodded, and he picked me up, flexing his hulking biceps and pulling me into an embrace. Not the worst outcome. The Japanese tourists continued to take photos. Cleaning up. Unfortunately, I wasn't any closer to learning what Paul's secret freelance job was. I tried to coax it out of him by saying subtle things like, "So, Alaska," and "So what is this freelance job I need to know right now? Tell me already." But he just smiled and kissed me in a way that made me forget what we were talking about. After the High Line, we decided to skip the Whitney and go straight back to Paul's place. I told him I had to get out of my white pants and get myself cleaned up, and he said he had plenty of towels I could wear. It was very considerate. Before I went inside, I claimed I needed to make a call and then ran across the street to the park and dug a little hole by one of the trees. I buried the jade earrings there, for safekeeping, and to keep the curse away. Everybody knows the best place to store cursed items is underground. Paul took me into his bedroom and whispered, "Let's get you out of those pants." I had gotten fairly dirty from rolling across the ground during the banana peel incident. Instead of letting me slide my pants off, Paul insisted he help by using his teeth. Kind of a roundabout way of doing things, but I knew he was an out-of-the-box thinker. I ran my hands through his silky hair. The light caught it so it looked really shiny. Man, what shampoo was this guy using? I wanted to ask him, but he wasn't in a position to talk. He was in a different position that I was enjoying more than I would a good shampoo recommendation. And that's saying something. I love talking about hair products. At some point, Paul started to bring his thin white t-shirt over his head, and while his face was partly obscured, I caught a flash of his torso that stirred some deep sense of recognition, like I'd seen it before. I mean, I had seen it before, but somewhere else that wasn't his bedroom or living room or shower. Who was this guy? The mountain. Have you ever felt like there was a mountain between you and your lover? Like a big, tall, unmistakable piece of rock? That's how it was the next morning when Paul woke me up and showed me his Alaska photos. He rolled over and said, "Let me show you a little peek," which I thought was a little foolish because last night I'd seen the whole thing. But then he reached for his phone and showed me a picture of Denali. It was pretty impressive, for something that's outdoors. Paul said it was fun to travel, but it was also fun to be back home. Clearly he was one of those people who thought everything was fun. Still, it was exciting that Paul wanted to share something about his life and not just talk about his feelings like some guys. Maybe he was getting closer to telling me about his secret job. What was he, a park ranger? Could you do that remotely? I was about to ask Paul if I could scroll through some more of his photos and maybe export his contact list when he pulled me in close against him, kissed my neck, and asked if I wanted a French press. I said sure, but give me a minute to take my clothes off. He said, "Oh, I mean a coffee." And I said, "Yeah, probably afterward." Later, Paul went into the kitchen and fried up some eggs and toasted some toast. For some reason, we were both starving. Scandal. At work, everything was crazy. Carrie was talking on 2 cell phones. Big Jim and Little Jim were yelling and pointing fingers at each other. Sophie was trying to clear a printer jam. Mabel was nervously biting her nails. Flexi Lexi was pouring whiskey into her coffee. Actually, that was normal. We had an intervention scheduled for next week. Apparently, CJ Carlson had arrived completely unannounced and was waiting in the lobby expecting to see the new Buck Wild cover designs. Nothing's worse than when an unexpected visitor wants something from you, especially if it's something you don't have because the designers haven't finished them yet. Phew, I was glad I wasn't one of them. They were really screwed. Carrie was doing her best to stall, but suddenly CJ Carlson burst into the office. Even more surprising, CJ Carlson didn't appear to be a jet-setting power lady at all. CJ Carlson was a man. Wait, a man named CJ? Those are clearly the most feminine consonants. The whole office gasped, even sad Randy. I was expecting someone fabulous, but this was just a regular guy, maybe 45, 50, dark hair, average height, like if a Best Buy was a person, nondescript. He was wearing khakis and a white polo shirt and white tennis shoes. From the looks of it, CJ Carlson, author of dozens of best-selling romance titles, stirrer of the loins of millions of women, was a boring, middle-aged white guy. I laughed to myself. I bet he did have a sandals timeshare. I wondered if I should mention that to the PR girls. Carrie and the designers went into the conference room with CJ, and as soon as they closed the door, Sophie went off on some feminist treatise about how men shouldn't be dictating the fantasies of women because they only serve to reinforce negative male behaviors and keep women blindly subservient or some other thing. But all I could think about was my date with Paul. He was really something. I wasn't exactly sure what. On one hand, he was a smart, suave, seductive former baseball player, but on the other hand, I felt like he was keeping a secret from me. Mostly because whenever I asked about his other job, he'd say, "It's a secret." I needed to hatch a plan to uncover what it was, but how? I could hack his iPhone passcode, turn on Find My Friends, track his whereabouts, and cross-reference it with his emails to find out where he'd been and why, and then show up and catch him in whatever act he was in. But that seemed too easy. What I needed to do was find someone who was close to him who might have some information. Luckily, it was about to be baseball season. Or maybe it already was. I mean, when is baseball season exactly? Play ball. If you've never been inside the Mets locker room, I don't recommend it. I guess there's a reason they don't let tour groups in. And that reason is a bunch of terrible smells. Imagine a Wednesday night SoulCycle class crossed with a bunch of old ham sandwiches. Honestly, I didn't know a lot about the Mets. All I knew is that one time Mr. Met got in trouble for flipping off some fans, which is really hard to do when you only have 4 fingers. But I guess that's what it takes to be a mascot, the ability to pull off the impossible. I'd never seen Mr. Met in person, but Wikipedia described him as a man with a baseball for a head, so I was going to keep an eye out. Oh God, what if Paul actually hadn't played baseball at all? What if he was Mr. Met? No, that was a nightmare scenario. The locker room had been wide open, so I just walked in. That was my first mistake. There were dirty uniforms and jock straps everywhere. I'm not a big fan of knowing about other people's dirty laundry. The locker room was mostly empty, except for the guys in the shower who started yelling, "Get out of here!" when I walked in. Everybody's so particular about wanting to shower in private. I waited for them to finish before I started in on my questions. "Towels?" I said. I wanted to start with something easy. "How'd you get in here?" they asked. Hey, I was supposed to be the one asking the questions. I told them I had urgent business concerning a former teammate. Before I could ask anything else, they said they should probably have their lawyers present. Everybody's so touchy these days. I told them no, it was nothing illegal. I just wanted to get some information about my boyfriend because he has a secret job he won't tell me about, and I'm trying to find out what it is. Then they laughed and laughed like I'd said something really funny. These guys were strange. I pulled up a photo of Paul on my phone and asked them if they knew about him. They claimed they didn't know him at all, but they did want to know how much he could bench. Probably 1,300, I said. I didn't know, but that was a ballpark estimate. You know, one you'd make in a ballpark. They said nobody could do that much, so I said fine, 50, and asked them where the ladies' room was. These baseball guys were all about stats. On my way to the bathroom, I bumped into the hitting coach. I could tell he was the hitting coach because it was clearly marked on his jacket. That's the thing I appreciate about sports. People's clothing is usually labeled. Surely this guy would know about Paul. Hey, Coach Mendoza, I said. I wanted to ask if you know this guy. I showed him a picture of Paul. Who are you, NYPD? He asked. I laughed. I couldn't imagine a job where I had to wear a uniform. No, I'm his girlfriend. Coach Mendoza asked what the general situation was and why I wanted to know, and if things didn't work out, did I think I was going to be free Labor Day weekend? He had a cute cleft chin, dark blonde hair, the ability to pull off statement jewelry, but he wasn't my type. And anyway, he told me that he did recognize Paul, but he'd never played for the Mets. Had Paul been lying to me about his baseball career? No, according to Coach Mendoza, he played for the New York Yankees. There was another team in New York? Who knew? Coach Mendoza sent me on my way and told me to definitely think about Labor Day weekend because he had a house in the Hamptons. I wasn't going to go, but it's nice to be invited. I took one last look around the stadium, and that's when I saw him. Happy couple. Mr. Met! Just like Wikipedia described him, the body of a man but the head of a baseball. A human, non-human hybrid like a centaur or a merman. But wait, something was different. This Mr. Met had a ponytail and also long eyelashes. Not that a baseball man couldn't have long eyelashes. Who knows what the beauty standards are for baseball-headed men? I couldn't judge. But then I saw the back of their jersey. Oh, this was Mrs. Met. When did Mr. Met get married? And what was the ceremony like? I was just about to sneak up behind Mrs. Met and surprise her by yelling her first name, Jan, when the real Mr. Met walked out of the dugout. I ducked behind the bleachers and watched Mrs. Met walk down to him. Were they going to make out? I thought I might witness some ball-on-ball action, but they both just walked into the dugout and then I couldn't see them anymore. Bummer. I guess they wanted some privacy for whatever ball-headed business they were about to do. It just made me think about Paul. Maybe we needed to get matching outfits. Also, was it weird that Mr. Met was married, but none of the other mascots were? Like, was there a Mrs. Philly fanatic? Maybe a Phyllis fanatic? I couldn't imagine that they'd have a stable home life. Ride 'em. Back at work, I couldn't concentrate. Sophie kept waving her hands in front of my face to get my attention. Cut it out already, Sophie. Carrie had put us on full-time coffee and snack ordering duties since the designers were supposed to be working non-stop on the CJ Carlson books. But my mind was elsewhere. Specifically, it was focused on trying to solve this Paul mystery. If he was really full-time lover material, I needed to know more details. Like, what skills did he have outside of baseball, fixing iPhones, being a genius, incredible lovemaking, and cooking up some pretty delicious fried eggs? I tried to talk to Karen about it, but she and Bernard, the bongo player, were all caught up in their new hobby, volleyball. They were joining an adult volleyball league. Wait till Bernard finds out Karen has no eye-hand coordination. I kind of want to go to a game just to see what happens. I told them they should take up another kind of ball that they might actually be good at, like Powerball. But they said that was a fool's errand. I thought a fool's errand was any time you had to go to the post office. The designers were finishing up the cowboy-themed books first. One of the designs for Buck Wild Dude Ranch featured a bunch of naked men's butts, and there was no way that was going to get approved by the higher-ups. I bet the designers just wanted to see what they could get away with. Personally, I was in favor of it. A book's just begging to be held if it has a firm ass on the cover. There was another version that had men shirtless in jeans with a close-up on their big belt buckles. Do you know what they say about men with big belt buckles? Do you? I need to find out because Big Jem kept asking me and winking. He must have had something in his eye. In the late afternoon, Sophie and I finally got a break. I called Paul to meet me near the park so he and I could take a little walk and get some air. It's important to get air. It's one of the main things you need for life. I was still trying to ask Paul questions to figure out his secret, but mostly he talked about baseball. He'd been a designated hitter. I guess that's what happens when some of the players get too drunk to hit. Paul really was a good guy to step in when other people couldn't control themselves. Sophie must have seen us walking together or groping each other in front of the Chinese takeout place because when I got back to the office, she said, "Is that your boyfriend? He's like a model." I know, Sophie, he's really hot. And then she blushed and did this giggling thing like she was thinking about him right in front of me. I mean, I couldn't prove she was thinking about him, but I couldn't not prove it either. I needed to find Sophie a boyfriend so she'd have somebody else to think about. What would be Sophie's type? I had no idea. I made a mental note to start listening when she was talking. Maybe I'd get some hints that way. This has been section 4 of Torsos of Desire, read by the author, Nicole Beckley, and produced by Nicole Beckley. The music is from Blue Dot Sessions. Tune into the next episode to find out what happens next.